Oh yeah. I'm gonna give it like 3 more minutes. Wait till five after. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody else just came in, so maybe there is a traffic jam out there we didn't know about. Hey, Rebecca. Rebecca, right? Yeah. So I guess the bees are all confused right now because it's cooler and August, then discovered in October they had a veromite bombs going off in their hives because the rain picked up and the bees all got out and mixed and matched with each other and started spreading them again. They shared the love. Yeah, sort of for a box. Yeah, on his that's on a board. Okay, how 10 or 12 is up. Pretty high load. Yeah, yeah. What's his name out in California? He says if you got that many, it's a dead hive. But I had one 2 years ago with 20 in it, 22 or something like that when I counted with the shake. And I put the oxalic acid pads in there, and 3 months later it was a zero count in there. It was amazing. I mean, usually I was like, okay, that's a dead freaking hive. I'll just treat it. What the heck? No, those pads are made out of like fabric. On the Swedish sponges. No, I think those are all cellulose. Yeah, because you can put them when you're done. You can put them on your compost pile. They'll go away. Okay, we ready to start? All right, let's get started. Richard's here, so we're good. Okay, tell me, is it on? Well, oh, we're on. Okay, have I been on for 15 minutes? Sort of. Yeah, great. Okay, hi y'all. Joe Powers, President. Welcome to the Houston Beekeeper Association meeting. Um, just real quick, upcoming things around the neighborhood here. Um, is we have our mentor program. So if you want to be a mentor and you haven't already signed up, I know, Joe, we've already got your information, but go on the website and there's a spot to sign up to be a mentor. It's a little link you go to. That's in the SCEP, tells you how to do it. Then the Texas Beekeeper Annual Convention is November 3rd through 4th, and that's in Temple. That's a great program. You get basically a whole year's worth of what you get educational programs here in like a day and a half there. So it's awesome. And they're also doing a honey tasting there somewhere on my list. I guess I erased that. But they're doing a honey tasting contest there, so you can enter your honey in a honey cake tasting contest, which is fun. And then the really fun thing we have going on is next month. Our meeting is on Thursday, November 16th. That's going to be the second Thursday or third. Anyway, it's not on a Tuesday, it's on a Thursday. The reason it's on Thursday, the 16th, is because Tuesday, the 22nd, which will be our third Tuesday, is the same Tuesday as Thanksgiving Day week, which last meeting everybody said, nope, that's a bad plan because nobody's going to be around town. So we moved it up a week and we're doing it on Thursday because I had to and I got us a different location. We're going to do the meeting at the Jung Center, which we've met at before. It's over there in the museum district. It's a great facility. And the good news, we can bring beer and wine to the meeting, no problem. Here, you can't do that here at the Jung Center. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's a parking lot there, huh? Jung. Yeah, and it's in your skip, and we'll remind you more times than for the next meeting that you'll know for sure. But there's a parking lot there. It all says reserved parking, but we're going to be the only people in the building, so you can park in the parking lot right at the building if you want to, or there's parking on the street, and there's also a parking lot across. What's that street behind y'all, Chris? Starts with the B, Berthea. Bayard. Yeah. Anyway, Berthea. Anyway, right behind that street, there's a big parking lot that's free also. So you can, if they're open, yeah, if it's open. They sometimes have other events, but usually every time we've done it there, we've been able to use that lot. So that's going to be great fun. So what we'll be doing for that, and you'll get it in the email. The Bee Club will provide like a honey baked ham or something like that, like we always do. And then we're asked everybody to bring, it's like a potluck, so bring like a side dish or dessert, appetizer, or something like that. So it's great fun. Okay. Everybody saw the beekeeping task. Hope you're doing this. And we have great door prizes. We have 4 door prizes. So one of them happens to be of a row of mite checking little tool there. So that'll come in real handy with the what I think is going to be a Varroa bomb that's going to be starting to go off here in the next few days, next few weeks anyway. Okay, so our speaker tonight is Brian Van Middendorp. Got it right. And he's going to be talking to us about building your own equipment. Brian is a shop teacher, I guess you'd say, up in Cypress. So great, Brian. Come on down.
All right. So I sent Michael Simon a note when I got here, and I said, "You bum, you signed me up for talking at a meeting, and you don't even show up." So, but anyway, he's a good guy. I appreciate him asking me. It was only like 2 days ago that he asked. So if it seems like I'm winging it, I am. So anyway, just a little bit about me. I started off my first bee club meeting was the Houston Natural Beekeepers Club. A guy that I knew, and he's passed away. I think COVID might have. I haven't heard, but anyway, sad story there. But he took me to my first bee meeting, and that was 7 years ago. And Jennifer Wagner, who's an advocate, and I think she might be the president of that club right now, took me over to a water meter, and I got my first bees out of a water meter. And I fell in love with capturing bees. So I started doing removals, and I've amassed, I think I have a little over 100 hives now from doing removals. The first year of COVID, I did 130 removals in like 45 days. So, and that's rebuilding whatever I tear apart because I can. So just a little bit about me. So I'm becoming a better beekeeper because I decided I wanted to keep more bees and not lose every other one that I bring home. Because that happens when you bring them home. But one thing that I found real quick as I added equipment, I needed to get better at it and do it the right way as soon as possible because it's real expensive to make mistakes when you spend $20, $25 on a box and you put it together and then 2 months later it falls apart, or buying a lid that maybe isn't going to serve your purpose or serve your purpose depending on how you look at it. So I'll just go through the samples that I've got here and tell you why and how. And I did add a note in the meeting announcement for the source. It's called beesource.com. I linked directly to the build it yourself list, and it has plans for building the nucleus box out of 1/2-inch plywood, and it also has the schematics for an entire Langstrom deep and shallow and medium and inner cover and lid and bottom board. So that's linked in there, so you can go in there and pull up prints if you're that kind of folks. It didn't make sense for me to print them all for everybody. You can just get them digitally and look at them on your phone. So, all right. So I've built just about everything that there is to a 10 frame hive, and then with the 5 frame boxes. And the thing I learned real quick was that I did not like singly building one frame at a time. So it's okay to do, but after a while, sometimes your frames will start to slant a little bit. And it's really important to have them as square as possible so that when you put them in your box, they go in. So this is actually my second generation frame jig for putting frames together. And the way I have it set up, I have these bars that come out, and then once I'm done assembling them, the frames just come out like this. Okay. YouTube is a great asset for building these. A lot of people do them differently. Some folks will use a piece of like broomstick and slide it in a hole because they can drill a hole easier. I have a lot of tools to my disposal, so I make squares instead of holes, and it just doesn't wobble or roll. But I can build, 100 frames, which is 10 boxes, right? Which, I mean, to someone that has 1 or 2 hives, probably not going to happen as frequently. But if you have to buy four mediums because you're getting a lot of honey, you're building 40 frames. It doesn't take. It's worth it. You'll by the time you build this and then put 40 frames together, you'll probably spend the same amount of time as building 40 frames. But anyway, let me tell you the tips on this. Tight Bond 3 glue is the only glue I'll use on any of my beekeeping equipment. It's the green bottle of Tight Bond. You can get it at Lowe's, Home Depot, and your local hardware store. I'll make sure I put a note in the meeting invite so everybody knows that name. It's the waterproof glue. Okay. I have accidentally, back when I was making mistakes, put in little short staples that didn't barely connect it. I thought, well, the glue will hold it. And I've had Tight Bond 1 and Tight Bond 2 come apart on my frames. When you start prying and pulling stuff out, they come apart. In fact, I glued one without a staple yesterday, and I'm confident that it'll do fine without a staple in it because it came apart because it had a little bitty staple because I still find them. The staples I use, I get my staples now at Harbor Freight, and I'm not saying that they have the best everything, but their staples are aluminum. So when you shoot those staples in, they're not going to rust. So they're going to last a little longer. They're just regular crown staples. This little guy is like $30 at Harbor Freight, and I love this thing. I use this on my deep boxes, on my lids, on my bottom boards, on my frames, on my nucleus colonies. This thing, I mean, I've not had a bloodied finger from it. I mean, other than nicking myself with a staple, because you just learn to not have your fingers under it. But this, if you have the ability to have an air compressor around, that thing just is great. And they last for as much as you use it. I mean, a lid like this lid right here, I make this lid myself. I'm just going to move this out of the way for a second. This lid, feel how heavy that is. That's not very heavy, is it? No. This is made out of, I'm pretty sure this is treated pine fence picket. I've got $2 in this lid. How much is a telescoping lid right now? Yeah. And it's okay if it has a hole in it. This one hasn't been on a hive at this point. I can see light through it. Every one of these lids that I have on a hive, they've filled that in with propolis. I can tell you how not to put these together. I got in a hurry because I had to take bees. I was trying to do a pollination contract down in the watermelon groves in South Texas because I thought that was a great idea. So I started putting lids together with ring shank nails because I read ring shank nails were great for putting woodwork together, and both of these came off. And I know that's about an inch of nail in there. I had Tight Bond 3 on it. It just didn't have enough surface area, and my joint gets glued too. It broke because the wind took part of it off and took it for a loop and threw it. But the staples, I've not had a single one pull apart. So I swear by staples, and I use 1.5 inch crown staples. I can get away with 1 3/8 on frames, but 1.5 is ideal. So if you're using nails, though, ring shank nails are better, but definitely go with something that's a little bit longer than you think you'd want to use. Um, these I think were like 1.5 inch. I should have used 2 inch, maybe 2.5 inch for this. And I pre-drilled everything so the nails wouldn't crack. So, um, so I'll talk about the deep box next. So, um, whether using 8 frame or 10 frame or putting together like a top bar hive, I have one top bar hive. I'm probably not going to have it after next summer. It's just not working for me, really. It was really neat to learn and understand it, but it's not going to be something I'm going to stay with. So with these boxes, I have made them out of pine boards that you get from the hardware store. I spent more money on that board than I did on buying a box made by any of the dealers that we have in the area. It took me probably almost an hour with everything set up to run one box. So making one as an adventure is a great idea. It's very, very fulfilling when you have your box that you made yourself. But for me, I'm going to buy mine. So um, something with these that I'll share with you, nails are great, but I've had to go back and re-nail nails so many times. If they're pre-drilled, put a little drop of the Type Bond 3 on it and then drive them in, they're less likely to come out on you. Another thing I really like to do, and this one doesn't have it, but I've started shooting staples through the top right here. And that keeps that top corner that doesn't have anything. There's a staple here, but nothing up here. And if this gets some moisture, it starts to curl away, kind of like on this box. It's happening down here. That staple, it pulled it clean out. And that's a bigger staple. So that's a factory staple from Man Lake. And I'm not trying to knock Man Lake. When they assemble them, though, they use staples. When they ship them to you, they send you with nails. So that's something to keep in mind. And I'll talk about the differences of these two boxes in a minute. So this box is wax dipped. I'm definitely going to keep wax dipping things. I've had this outside in my backyard. It hasn't been in service, this one particularly, but it's still slick from the wax, and it's been in the sun, and we've had a lot of heat this summer. I think I dipped maybe in the middle of April or May. It's probably when they got dipped. So they had, 60 days of hot sun on them, and it's still great. It hasn't warped because it has not had a chance to get any moisture into it. I'm just totally set that I'm going to continue to wax dip. I know Magnolia Bee and Supply offers wax dipped boxes. And then I know the guy that actually does the dipping for them, and that's where I got mine dipped. So he's a great guy. But I'll mention his name on the thread also to put some things together. So anyway, when I put these together, I use a jig that I made for these. I couldn't bring it with me, but effectively what I've done is I've taken and squared up some boards, just a couple boards, put a couple corners on a table, and then I put the box into the corner, make sure that it's tied up in that corner, and then I start putting my staples in. Once you get a few staples on each side or a few nails in, then you can pull it out and finish up. But you really want your first corner to go in square, because if it's square, the rest of your corners are going to be closer to square than not. Okay. If you try to put everything together at once, it can go really wrong. I have a few boxes that they teeter totter from corner to corner. I don't know if that was a me thing or if it was a manufacturer. These particular boxes, I can see I have some markers on here. That tells me that this was an order that I got from a supplier. I bought budget grade boxes. I had to take almost every one of them to a bandsaw and trim the ears down so they'd fit together. And that was not fun. Some went together better than others. This one's really minor, having just 2 marks on them. I have some box joints that are missing half the box joint because they couldn't fit together. The supplier had an issue with their equipment. But being wax dipped, they have not had any problem. So even if you're doing box joints and they don't fit just perfectly and you have to trim them up for your first time, just put staples in them and they'll do good for you for a while. But Okay, so this box over here was not wax dipped. It doesn't have paint on it. And I have had painted boxes start to curl on me before too. But this has nice, big, heavy staples in it. And these staples, they're all rusted. I can see it on them. The ones sticking out over here are nice and rusty. So these are going to be steel, might have been galvanized, but the galvanizing is worn off of them. There's staples out on this side and over here. And because it wasn't painted, I'm sure it's gotten more moisture in it, which causes it to crack. So getting a nice coat of paint on if you don't have the opportunity to wax dip, painting is really, really important. This is made out of just regular 1/2 inch plywood. I'm confident that this box is 4 years old at least, and it's still together because I put enough paint on it to keep it together. I have a couple spots down here. I consider that a second entrance. I'll show you that when we get to it. But got to get nice coats of paint. One thing I learned about paint is you cannot put oil-based paint and then put latex paint over oil-based paint. You got to stick with oil-based if you start with oil-based. I like to buy inexpensive paint because I paint a lot of boxes. I made the mistake of somewhere along the line, I have a box that had oil base. I think I might have bought it from somebody else, and I buy only latex exterior grade. Put it on, and it looks like it has leprosy. The paint is bubbled up and just, anyway. So lots and lots of paint. I have started painting. If I have to paint, I'm going to even paint the top edge of my hive. That's going to seal up more of the pores because the water, when it seeps in, it's not going to impact the bottom of the box as much as the top. And by sealing that, you're going to get more life out of your box. Okay. I don't like replacing boxes. I have some that are in a lot worse shape than this. This will go on to a hive and continue to be used, but I've got boxes that are missing corners on the top and on the bottom. So the bottom ones, when they sit on the bottom board, they get so much more moisture on that bottom board, they'll tend to rot as well. So painting them on the bottom wouldn't be a bad idea either. But again, I shoot staples or put nails in every single ear. I thought I was smart when I first started, and I shot staple, staple, staple. I'm like, oh, 3 will hold it. This is going to be great. Curled up, came apart. Nothing worse than you seal up the front of your box and decide you're going to move your hive, and all of a sudden the bees come out the side. It's not a pleasant day. So when you do these, make sure not lots of, but when you use that Titebond glue, the Titebond 3, you want to make sure you apply enough of it. Get 2 or 3 surfaces if you can. The more surfaces, the stronger that joint's going to be. Put your staples or nails in every hole that they pre-drilled for you if you get them from someone that pre-drills them. But every ear needs to have one on each side, and that keeps them together. And then my recommendation is, if you can, shoot one through here, through the top ears. The bottom ears have a staple right here, but this has that little bit extra of material. So on the top of the box, you want to consider doing that. If you're using nails, you might want to put a little drill hole so you don't split it, okay? So, let's see. So what else could I tell you about? Oh, bottom board. So I really, really, really like to use my bottom boards upside down, some people would say. I run the 3/8 inch side up, so I don't have to use a mouse guard. I've never had a mouse get in my hive because they can't fit through a 3/8 inch hole. I also don't lose my entry reducer. When I first started, I had maybe 10 or 12 entry reducers. For some reason, the bees move them. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. I had one that was glued so tightly to a bottom board. It's still on that bottom board. I just didn't bother taking it off. But it was sitting about a 1/2 inch in front of the hive. So they used it as an obstacle course to get in the hive instead of a reducer. But I've also had them disappear from the hive where the bees started moving them in, and then they start going in and out. With that 3/8 inch, your hive reducer the front door reducer is not going to end up into your hive. It's going to stay put where it's at. But I also like the idea that other things, it's a smaller entryway, so you don't have to worry as much about robbers coming in because there's less area for the bees to have to protect. All right. So these again, this has got some garbage on it. I think I'm going to put it in here. This is a good spot for it. I don't want to put it on the floor. All right, so some of this stuff's been used. So this is a bottom board. This is pine. I do cut this pine. Um, I use a router to put a little notch into it, right? And then fence pickets again. So this bottom board, I would say I probably have about $3 in it. And I don't I don't bother doing anything to these boards other than cut them to length. And then when they're done, I just cut them off at the end. Sometimes I'll measure and cut them before I put them in. But I run Tight Bond 3 all the way down that groove. Staple. Every board has at least one staple in it. The first one has two. The back one has a couple, and then I usually shoot a few back here just to keep this piece in place. This does not have a rabbet. It doesn't have a little groove in the back. I found that it doesn't do anything for me that a couple staples doesn't take care of. So there's no sagging or drooping in the back. Again, if you have a little bit of a gap here and there, the bees will close it up. Otherwise, it's a great way to run moisture out of your bottom board if you get water in your bottom board. Speaking of that, I purchased 16 hives from a commercial keeper because I wanted his queens. So I got the queens from him with the hives, and all of his pallets have 2 3/4 inch holes in the bottom, like here and here in the back. So if that pallet gets set at an angle, one side's going to be up water and the other one's going to be down. So if the water runs in, it gets out. And it doesn't bother the bees. The bees can't fill that up. It's too big for them to fill. But again, this is super light, super cheap. I don't mind carrying these in my truck because I can just move them around. I usually have 2 or 3 tops and bottoms in my truck in case I need to replace one somewhere as I'm going around. But these have all held up really well. I've had them in use for over a year. And for the price, even if I had to replace them every couple of years, it's still a really good value for me. So, but again, it's just, I think these are actually cedar pickets. That's why they're pretty. And the cedar's actually lighter because it doesn't have all the moisture in it. I've had no problem with treated lumber on my hives. I've had no problem. I use, for my inner cover, I use the silver bubble wrap that you might see in the insulation section. They use them for wrapping water heaters. That stuff is so light, so easy to use. I take that, it's already 16 inches wide, which is the width of a deep box, 16 1/4. So 16 inches covers the frames really well. The bees don't chew it. And when you peel it off, you can peel off a little bit and squirt a little smoke in there, puff, puff, puff. Give them a second, and then you pull it off. You'll see that they lock beetles into it really well. They propolize them in. It's like a beetle incarceration facility, honestly. So, I mean, I've opened it up and I've had 100 beetles run, just laying up on the top of the frames where they'd propolized them in with that Reflectix stuff. But it also provides an insulation barrier for you too. So that's a big advantage. I think I can get about 15 sheets out of one roll. But I use a lot of it. I change out a bunch of my inner covers. I'm just using that. Yeah. Yeah. And I have one that I did put a hole because I had a hole in my top I was trying to find a hive top feeder that would work for me. And that just didn't work out for me at this point. I'm definitely leaning towards hive top feeders because I don't have to disturb the bees, and I'd like to be able to do it faster because I'm dealing with as many hives as I have. So my nucleus colonies almost all have holes in them now, so I can put a jar on top or put something on top that might have food in it, and then when I'm not using them, I just take a little piece of hardware cloth or a piece of duct tape. I have a couple tops that I know that duct tape's been on there for 3 years and it's still there. So, and this lid wasn't for this one, so they're all made the same, so that all my boxes go back together if I lose a lid here or break a lid there. But anyway, I'm so fond of making these the way that they are. If you didn't have the capacity to be able to get a router maybe to run a groove, you could easily get a 1x and just put a trim board, just another little piece of board right behind it, and lay your boards on that, and then nail or screw or staple and put a couple staples on the bottom, and it would work just the same. So, I mean, I actually, if you have, because this is 3/4 of an inch on this side, you could get a little 3/4 inch strip and just nail it along the bottom of a flat piece of board. So you could go to someone that has a table saw. I definitely recommend knowing someone that has a table saw if you don't have one yourself, and just have them take your board and cut it into strips for you, and then you can hand saw it or cut it with a compound miter saw. I know a few folks have those, but hand saws work great on them too. One, two cuts, three cuts, and you're going to have the board you need there. And then if you do the trims, the little shims, you could staple those in here and then lay these boards to that measurement. Again, the measurement of these boards is on that B source. It's the 10 frame Langstrom document. I think it's number 3. They're numbered on that list. It has a complete listing and blow up of all the components of that Langstrom hive. So it's a great resource. I print a new copy every year because I can never find my old one. But whenever I'm building bottom boards and top covers, all of those end up getting rebuilt based off of those measurements. I did make a couple, and I bought some from some people that had made them when I was really needing to have more top covers. I'm getting rid of more and more of them. What I'm doing with those is putting them in places that I kind of got in a jam and I needed them. So I haven't sold them or gotten rid of them. A couple of them are getting pretty bad shape. But what I've noticed is fire ants like to live under that metal cover. I've taken a lid, switched it out with one of my migratory covers, and I'll take that and put it in my truck. And a couple days later, I'll open my truck and I get a fire ant bite, and I'm like, wait a minute, I've not been in my driveway very long, and then I see them coming out of the lid of the migratory cover. I have some that are made out of plywood and they have flashing, aluminum flashing bent over them. The aluminum's in great shape. All the materials underneath are rotted because the moisture that captures in between there. So the wicking structure, when you put metal against wood, the wood and metal contact is going to grab onto that water droplet and start to suck it back up in there just based off of physics. So you end up getting a lot of rot. I've had dovetailed joints like this underneath that metal cover, and the joints fall apart. I'm sure if you put really good paint on them and take real good care of them, they'll last forever. But some of the ones I've had just weren't really taken care of real well. So they're also heavy. It's the reason why you have to have an inner cover, because you have a telescoping cover. If you have a migratory cover, I don't even need to have excuse me, I don't even need to have a inner cover. I can run without that Reflectix. But when I crack it open, I crack it from the side and I still pull some frames up. So I have to reach in with my hive tool and knock some frames loose. That's really the idea of having an inner cover, is to keep your frames from sticking to your lid. So when that telescoping lid comes off of the hive, you don't have a way to pry stuff off of it because it sticks down below the top of the frames. So by lifting that up, it's not glued down. It pops off nice and easy, slides up. Then you have to take your inner cover off. And if they built it to your inner cover, you've had to deal with that too. So pry it up a little bit and pop them loose. And that's where that Reflectix comes in easy, because you peel it a little bit. It's not hard to peel it. And once you go, I mean, you pull all the corners and get it loose, and then it comes right off. Only problem I have with that is the wind likes to take it. So I usually lay it down and put something on it so it doesn't take off, because it is really light. And I was talking to someone earlier about weight of hives. I think the lady that was here, yeah. So when you're worried about taking a medium off that's full of honey, weighing 35, 45, 50 pounds possibly, um, you know, weight matters. And I'm not getting any younger. I don't know about y'all, but I'm not getting any younger. I don't lift deeps off of the third stack anymore. I only use mediums on the up end anymore. If I do have a deep because I didn't have a medium, I take each frame out, brush my bees off, put them in an empty box, because I don't want to get hurt. It takes me longer to heal now too. So these are super light. I mean, super light. This was off of a dead out. This was on a hive that died. Wax moths will bore into it just like any other board. But I just didn't clean it up yet. It's still got some debris on it. But this will go back into service as soon as I upgrade. I have some nukes from removals that I've done recently that when those bees get a little stronger, they'll go into a bigger box. So that's the 10 frame space. The next thing, and I mean, realistically, I decided to bring the 5 frame nucleus box with me because everyone in the spring needs to consider what they're going to do with their bees, because as your bees build up, you have the potential of swarming. And if they're taken off and you're not prepared for it, I mean, you may have no bees at the end of the week or the end of the month. So having a nucleus box nearby, to me, is imperative. I'm almost out in my garage. I usually have 12 or 13 in my garage. I filled 2 nucleus colonies in the last 2 days from removals that were like really close to my house. So I just went ahead and did it. So I'm out up removing the last few bees in the darkness. But these nucleus colonies you can make 4 of these out of a sheet of 1/2 inch plywood. So for 1 sheet of plywood, you can use a circular saw. You just have to lay out straight lines. You can use a circular saw to cut the pieces. But you make 4 boxes out of this. You could then put your frames in it and then do a split and get that split nice and strong and sell it to your neighbor or a friend in the club that needs it, or give it away if you so are inclined. But these things have worked out great. I do occasionally find that the lids will bow because I didn't put enough paint on them. Again, it's back to paint, especially because it's on the water side, the weather side. But the bees propolize the inside pretty good. Um, this lid actually, one of my friends made the red stuff. That's how he knew it was his. I ended up with some of his equipment as we flip flop back and forth, but all of the stuff used the same design. The lid's just a flat piece, cut to a certain length, and then a couple cleats on there just to keep it from going off front to back. And if you go to move it, you just take a little strap or something and wrap it around it, and that lid pulls down nice and tight. I could cut that Reflectix and put it inside of these, but it hasn't made any sense for me yet to have that inner cover, because when you pop these, your hive tool will usually stick all the way through here if you've got one of the full size ones. But these go together really easy. Again, I've used staples. All of these are stapled, and you can see on this one I painted the rim. Okay, I guarantee you that that's why this one hasn't gone awry. So, and plenty of wax moth damage in there. You can see that it happens. So, but anyway, with the cuts on this, I'm actually using pallet wood to make these now. I had to move one dimension this way a little bit because the pallet wood's a little thicker, and there's a lot of seams because the different boards that I pick up off of a pallet, and there's drill holes and nail holes and cracks and crevices. But in my shop, my kids were making Halloween pumpkins out of little scraps of wood. What they didn't know is that every board that they cut to 19 1/4 is the length of the sidewall of this. So when we get to the next project and they're done, I'll say, hey, take some of those and start putting them together. This I have free labor as a woodshop teacher, but yeah, child labor too at that. But they like getting good grades, and the kids really do enjoy trying different things. So I don't feel it's such a bad thing. And I bring them honey sometimes. We have some honey to taste once in a while. But anyway, these again are super easy to make. The cut list that's in B Source is amazing. It shows you the layout on a full sheet of plywood. I make these out of pallet boards now. Like I was saying, I just find the boards that fit and then trim it down with the saw and then staple them together. I still use plywood on the front unless I have a really wide solid board. And that's where you got to be careful if you're building your box yourself. The dimension from the inside is what matters on any of your equipment, because that's where your frames fit. And I have one box that someone made for me, another shop teacher, and I gave him the dimensions. He did not compensate for the thickness of his wood, and I can only put plastic frames in that box because plastic frames are a little tighter. And any variation in a wood frame, and they don't want to go in there. But again, it's just staple, 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 and Titebond 3 glue. I have probably 50 of these boxes sitting out in yards, different places. I had one of this particular style, 2 actually. Let me tell you, these are great stories. I had to move 6 nucleus colonies to another yard for an emergency situation that I had to deal with. And my one friend came to help me, and we're loading boxes and we're putting ratchet straps around them. Well, the one ratchet straps, most ratchet straps are 12 foot or 8 foot. No matter what, this isn't 12 foot or 8 foot. We're going along and I'm behind him, and all of a sudden I see a nuke box go out of the back of the truck. I mean, it flew. The strap got under the back tire and yanked that bugger out and slammed those bees to the ground. I didn't lose a single bee. The lid, one of the cleats popped off. That thing did not break. These things are really rugged when you use Type Bond 3. I have a rack on the back of my truck. Driving out on Clay Road out towards 99, I was moving 3 removal colonies in one of these. Had them laid up, and I should know better. I should put a strap on every single box. I put one strap over 3, and then I zigzag it. The middle box rolled out. It started vibrating out, and it did a nosedive into the ground, and it was stuck between my trailer and my rack, the way I had it set up, and it wore down the landing rack or landing strip right here by at least a half an inch before I could get stopped. And it was okay. The lid fell off. Everything was a mess. Bees did not come out, though. They had them propylized down, thank goodness. Otherwise, I would have had frames of bees laying in the middle of Clay Road, which is not a lightly traveled road. But anyway, I'm a big fan of this particular style. This is listed in that bee source document that's published. It's it's D as in David, Coates 5-frame nucleus box. And I have no reason to switch to any other. You can do a couple things on the entrance. I use different size holes, and honestly, the bees don't care as long as they can get in and out of them. I could also see raising this board up 3/8 of an inch and just make a slot on the bottom. If I had a short board, I might have to do that. But overall, just a big fan of these. Now, talking about jigs and fixtures, because I do make so many of these, I went ahead and made a fixture for this. I just went ahead and took some scrap plywood that I had in the shop, and I made a jig so that I could put my boards in. And so without the lid, I'll set my first 2 pieces in and butt them up, and these cleats won't be on yet. These cleats go on at the end. So this butts up against the back. And then I have a couple wedges that I wedge it in here so that it holds it nice and square. And then I can shoot staples in the sides. It just really makes the assembly of this faster. And then I can put these together in it too. So Bob Benny, who's probably one of the people I like watching on YouTube the most, has a jig like this attached to his workbench. And his guys put boxes together, drop them in there, they roll it. So I made a good for me version of it, so I can get to all my staples without having to take the box out of the jig. And that's going to help me get my square corner to start. And then once I get most of it put together, I'll pull it out and finish it up. But again, Type Bond 3, I use, it's I would use it for a soldering flux brush. It's a metal brush with little short hairs. And I think, I don't know the name of it. An acid brush. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. So that I have those in my shop also. I don't know why they were in there, but they work really good for applying the Type Bond glue. I've also found that you can go on Amazon and they have a glue bottle that has a cap, and it's a bottom feed kind of structure. So you squeeze it and the glue goes out the bottom and up through a little straw, and you can cut the tip of that to match whatever you're trying to do. And then it has a little rubber cap that slides over it when you're done, and all the glue goes back down in the bottom. So you don't get the nasty glue crusties in the top of it. Because as a shop teacher, I have to deal with that a lot. So those are definitely helpful. But I've had one in my garage with Type Bond 3 in it. It's been in there long enough that the liquid is separated from the glue because I haven't used it for several months. Shook it up and it worked great. So, but folks, I will tell you, making the boxes from scratch and making the frames from scratch, I'll never do that again. It's just a lot of work. If you're going to do it once, good on you. I wouldn't say don't try it, because you might find that it works for you and you love doing it and have all the time in the world to do it. But um, I buy my frames and put them together 10 at a time by using that jig. And boxes, I put a lot of boxes together over the winter. So that's something you need to be thinking about as we're moving into winter, what you're going to need to do to expand your apiary or take care of your apiary for next year. If you're a first year keeper and you had your bees just this spring, you're probably going to make more honey next year than you made this year, because first off, this year was not a good honey year. It was about half or less, in my opinion. I had double the bees and made half the honey. So I think that's more like 33% of what it normally is. But it's never too early to start building your bee equipment if you're going to add something to your apiary. If you need a couple mediums to have just on hand in case you want to pull a frame of honey early, so that way you can have very light and clear honey when the tallow's blooming, or whatever else you might have in your neighborhood. Um, Being targeted on your honey can help give you some diversity in your flavors of your honey. I noticed this year when I was harvesting, I had pulled a couple of my larger yards at once. And then the next evening, I pulled all my outer yards. And my outer yards, every box that I pulled off had different flavor honey in it, every single box. And some of the boxes came off the same hives. It's just when they're into something, they eat that and they bring it in. And when they're done with that, they go to the next one, and what fills up the next one. And they just keep going until they're out of that. So it's just been really awesome getting to experience the different flavors from all around Houston. But the tallow honey this year definitely was damaged a lot by the freezes we had in January and February. So, and something else, I use that Reflectix for insulation value. It's more or less to help the bees control their heat and cool in their hive a little bit better. Just reduces, because I'm using a thinner wood. The removal I did yesterday, I told the general contractor of that job, I said, every one of those peaks, it was a corner cap of a Jiffy Lube going to be oil station or oil change place. They had put 2x material and then a piece of plywood over it for an angle, just to pitch water off towards the back of the roof. And I told them, as soon as they put that 2x material over that cap, that became a beehive. And I gave them some tips on how to keep bees out of there. While I was looking at the bees there was a bee over on the other side sitting there sniffing around on the other side of it, because that was perfect. If bees have a 2-inch piece of wood over them, they can build a hive without an issue. I've found in many removals that I've done, like in a roof, where the bees are in like a little eave right here, and the roof pitches up like this. As soon as the bees go up into that roof, unless there's a big shade tree, that wax melts and falls down. And that's why with our Langstrom hives, we've got that big top bar. The thickness of that's insulating from any residual heat transfer, and it doesn't come into direct contact with your lid because of your inner cover. So that's going to give your bees the chance to keep that air moving and not overheat. And when it comes to the coolness of the winter, which we really don't have a winter compared to the people up north, the bees do just fine as long as they have food. So I just add one thing I did last year, and I had a lot more bees make it through winter, is I left 4 to 5 frames of a medium of honey on top of their brood box. And that was for like 5 or 6 frames of bees. And they ate into it, but they didn't have to go so far. And I also took my queen excluder off for the winter, because you don't want the bees to leave the queen, because she won't make it without them. If they go up to eat, she's going to get left behind if you leave a queen excluder on. So, so I'd love to answer any questions. I know you guys have at least one or two. Joe, thank you for the one you gave me. I appreciate it.
You ever think about using marine plywood for your little projects?
So
It's kind of expensive per sheet, but
yeah. So there's
a lot more
actually,
life.
so as far as the marine stuff, is that going to be as far as weight? Is it a light product too, or is it heavy?
Uh, if you use the okium, it's lighter than the Marante, and the fur is also fur and Marante are about the same weight.
Okay. So I've looked at doing the OSB flooring boards
Yeah,
that are
that's heavy.
that stuff's really heavy
Now
and
this
it's
is
expensive.
just it's like half-inch plywood will have maybe 9 layers to it and really good glue, so it's can survive in a marine environment. So this is a box sitting outdoors all the time, making out of plywood.
Yeah, I mean, and knowing that it's not going to have the wet and dry frequency like you'd have in a marine where they're soaking
Right.
in water, I would think it would hold up in rain really well.
Yeah.
So, no, I haven't thought of that. I didn't even consider that being an option because I couldn't even find the OSB that they use out in the East Coast and along the South and the East. We don't have it around here, I guess, because they get more hurricanes. I'm not trying to jinx us, but so yes, sir.
I think it's cedar. So I haven't, EPA got this favor now. Now I've noticed all my neighbors that place their fence. I go bottom board, box, all side of it. Then if you go to Lowe's, they have it. You ever go out in the down at the end, they have a lumber pile.
I found one. I found one before.
Set out there for contractors. Holes. You go in and get about 50 to 60% off. So you can get some really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the last I bought one of those bundles from Lowe's. Oh, we got a question?
Yeah, just kind of want to say.
Not from the wood types, no. No, nothing that I could attribute directly to the box. With the diet, anything that is like a abscond situation, um, I couldn't say it's happened anymore with one type of box versus just a traditional pine box or wax tipped box. Um, if it's a wax or I'm sorry, if it's a high beetle issue, um, I don't see. I mean, with the 5 frame nukes, just because the way they're designed and they have a little bit of gap on the top, they get a little bit more high beetles in them. I think the bees just can't move them around the same way because of the gap in the top. But as far as die outs from that, no. Um, the bottom boards, I think I put maybe 20 of those out this year, and I had 2 of those die. Going just over summer is when they died. And I think out of 110 hives, I think I lost 11 hives total. And honestly, I didn't pay close attention to why. I just know that there was plenty of hive beetles, plenty of wax moths when I found them. I think 2 of them had the cedar boards on the bottom, but a lot of people that are selling cedar hive bodies are saying, "Hey, that cedar is kind of an anti-pest kind of smell anyway." But I still find hive beetles in with them. But no, so I don't think so. What I'm more worried about is how long is the board gonna last. Since I've been using the treated tops and I've not seen any demise of those bees. In fact, honestly, I think the bees do better because they actually have a little ventilation. They can move a little bit more air that way. Um, I'm really happy with the way that those work. Um, but yeah, so no, I haven't seen any substantial anything that was lingering, pointing one way or another. Yeah, so the pallets that I use, like when I'm setting up an apiary, depending on the type of environment that it's in, I'll throw some pallets down and set hives on top of pallets. Um, those I don't care about, whatever my hives sit on. But the ones that I cut up and stuff are the ones that are coming from food service at school. So they're pretty clean pallets. So yeah, the guy really likes dropping them off in the back. So did you have a question?
corners chipping, like it'll expose my wood and it gets wet.
Yeah, so the chipping, really the big thing is going to be make sure that you pre-drill holes for your nails if you're using nails. If you're using staples, if you're using any kind of stapler, using bigger staples does not mean better. And when you're like the staples on that box, those are too big. Those staples crack the wood. They flip the like split it and bring it up when they shoot that staple in. But as far as that would go, I would probably take a little piece of sandpaper and hit it a little bit just to get the sharpness off of it and put some fresh paint on it. And any paint, anything to seal that up. I used to carry a can of flat black paint in my truck for doing cutouts. I would spray, and I realized spray painting a wall after you bring bees out isn't going to prevent bees. When I opened up a lady's house and she had red, blue, and more blue on the other corner when I removed the colonies, where the person that did it before painted it. But fingernail polish, I'm not afraid of it. I will steal my daughter's fingernail polish, keep it in the truck, use it to paint my screws or whatever else is starting to rust or looking bad. That works great. Just a little touch up. It's got a brush in it and everything. But like this one right here, this is split. I think this one cracked. This is again one that came that was defective. So I think when I shot that staple, I remember this. This is glued back on, but this isn't going to hurt me because I don't touch my box a lot. And when I do move it, I usually have gloves on because I'm working with bees in it. But yeah, if I had a split or a chip come out of it, I would probably just sand it off a little bit and put a little more paint on it. I use Google Keep for my bee notes. So like I can go into here and I have a picture of one of my apiaries on it, and I can tell you about, let's see, that's all my notes for most of my bees right there. So it's I just have individual lines saying if I need to bring something with me to the next one or whatever, and I just update it as I go, and it's free. Most Androids have it on there. I think you can get it on Apple. Apple probably has a similar thing that you can keep notes on. I did a presentation at my bee club. So I'm the president of the Northwest Beekeepers Club. We meet on the second Tuesdays of each month, and let's see. So we're not quite a year old. We might be a year old now. I think we might be a
right
year
around.
old now. But I did a presentation on technology, and a lot of folks are concerned about keeping notes. And I think keeping notes is something I can get a lot better at, because like I'll show up at a location that I haven't been to in 4 weeks, and I'll be like, oh no, I forgot to grab that queen excluder, or oh no, I forgot to grab another bottom board because that one was falling apart, and they'll make it another month. But that right there is a great tool to have, is some kind of way to keep notes on you while you're doing it. And you can put pictures in there. I didn't know that until just the other day. It's called Google Keep. Yeah, it's just KEEP. And it came with the Google suite of stuff. So if you just got a regular Google account, you go and click the little waffle. And I think there's a way you can search that, but it's usually kept in the second tab. Once you get past the normal ones, it's down a little lower. Or just type it in as the web address Google Keep, and it'll pull it up, and then it'll have a link to your Google Keep. So whenever someone cuts me off in traffic, I record their license number and take pictures and stuff. Yes. It's Reflectix. Yeah. Nope. No, and the reason why we don't, so I know a little bit about this. Water is going to stick to something when the temperature on both sides are different, but the temperatures don't touch each other because of the air gaps in the bubbles. So you're not going to have heat or cold on the outside or heat and cold on the inside to condensate. So the water doesn't bubble up in it. My inner covers, my wood ones, I've had them rot with mold and get expanded because they were fiberboard because of moisture, because they don't vent well.
So your Reflectix is like cardboard except made out of foil.
Yeah, it's,
Mine are coated.
yeah, it's awesome for a bit. Yeah, I've had none. I got that idea off the Canadian beekeeper. He uses that. I see him. He just goes up to the hive, rips it right off, and it doesn't tear. The bees don't chew it. He has cuts in it for feeders, but he keeps his bees in a barn up in Manitoba, Canada. And all they have is the box, Reflectix, a lid, and he just keeps air moving through that. And the bees do fine. He loses some. Everyone loses hives when you have a lot. But he goes out there with a heat gun in one of his videos, and you can just see they're all nice and toasty inside their home. So yeah.
I've been making mine out of great canvas.
Yep.
So my mother-in-law, when she comes down,
So I tried not the number 8. I couldn't find that for a reasonable price. So I tried one grade under it, and it lasted about a year. I had blue. It was beautiful. I love blue. I'm a blue fan. And I laid it on there, and the bees would chew it. So I don't know if you're seeing any chewing. I know, yeah. Yeah, so I'm not. I applaud if the number 8 works that good, great. It's just the cost of it. When I went to Hobby Lobby to buy some, it didn't make sense. And then when I saw the Reflectix, I'm like, that makes sense. Plus, you only got to cut one side. You cut one slice, you got one piece. A second slice, you got a second piece. So, and keeps the heat out. Yeah, yeah. So this is another good story. I went to my local Ace Hardware and I walked in and I said, "Hey, do you guys have that's number 8, number 8 hardware cloth?" He's like, "Well, how much do you need?" I said, "Well, how much is it? I don't care how much I need. I need to know how much it is." And he's like, "Oh, it's $120 for a 100-foot or 100-yard roll." I'm like, "I'll take every one you can get me." And he ordered me 3. So the 3 showed up. I get a phone call from the owner. He says, "Sir, we had a little pricing discrepancy on your order. Um, these rolls are like $600. They're not $100. And if you'd like, I'll sell you them at cost, but I can't sell them to you for $100." So I own a roll. I bought a roll, and I think I got it for a lot less than $600. But yes, so I took 2x4s and cut them in half, and then that was my bottom frame for the wire, and then I put shims across the top. Um, and I don't think I have any of those out in the field. I know I have 3 of them sitting on my shelf in my garage. I am not a big fan of screen bottom boards. Um, I manage bees at the Oaks Country Club out on Hager Road, out 290, and every screen bottom board that they had has been rotten and fallen apart, and all their solid bottom boards are still intact. I don't know if it's anything to do with the materials themselves, but I know when you put that amount of metal and wood together, you're going to have that condensation buildup just from the temperature differences, and that's what's going to contribute to the demise of them. So just a thought. I'm not trying to say anything's wrong, because every beekeeper has a different opinion. But my opinion, I have a few, but it's only because they were free or they ended up in a batch that I bought from somebody. So,
That's really nice. I've had mine. I read about half.
yeah. To put it in perspective, when I do a removal from a tree, bees live in trees, right? And so I go up to a tree, and one hole will be like the size of a quarter, and I'll sit there for 4 hours getting bees out of that tree. And honestly, it's so simple because you're just watching bees come out of one hole instead of 5, or a 3-foot hole. Or bees don't care; they can manage. A couple of my lids, I don't know where the wind came from, but it knocked. I had stacks of boxes, had all my honey supers stacked on pallets out at one of my yards. Um, Everything got knocked over, and I had two nucleus boxes got knocked over. They weren't heavy enough, and they're laying on their side without a lid, and those bees are still happy in that box. They didn't care. I've had another a 10 frame box. Most of them have straps on that particular yard because it's out on a really open plain. Um, The lid flew off of that one. They didn't propolis it down. It wasn't a strong colony. There were still bees in it when I got out there, and I don't know when that blew off. Had to have been a couple weeks, and the bees were still fine. Yes, sir. So propolis is the bee's glue. So yeah, so I'll bring this. So this right here is propolis. They glue, they take it and they spit it up. Kind of sticky. It's really awesome stuff. There's more of it right here. So you guys see it over there, right in there. So this, I definitely have some sticky bees. I call them sticky bees because they make so much, and it's something that a lot of beekeepers don't want to have because they make so much of it, and then everything's hard to break apart. But I actually harvest it, and how do I put this that I don't get this? I make a lot of mead out of honey that I can't sell. Well, that isn't go to jail stuff. That doesn't go to jail stuff. And I'm being broadcast, so I got to be careful with this. So when I have a mead that it is off flavor, I have a guy I know, and he brings me back white liquid, and I'll just put it that way. I soak my propolis in that, so my propolis becomes a tincture. Tincture, and that stuff is amazing. One, it's for me. It's like smells amazing. I mean, the smell, the fragrance of that is just amazing. I love it. I get stung all the time, and I'll go home tonight because I cut this one out today. I'll go home, stick my finger in it, rub it on that, and that thing will feel great tomorrow. I won't have a bit of problem with it. I bought some glass bottles because I have someone at school that they asked for their dad. They have someone that has cancer, and they heard propolis would help cancer. Okay, so I got some 2-ounce bottles, and it has a glass dropper in it. I put it in and drew some up and squirted it out, and the inside of that glass is now translucent because the stickiness of it stuck to the wall of that glass. Gosh, the smell is good. But I have a jar that I throw all my propolis in, and then when the jar gets full of propolis, I strain it out, and then I put it back in, and I try to get all of the goodness out of it I can. It is. Yeah. I'm gonna bet that propolis is in Swarm Commander. Yeah, so some tincture and then probably some lemongrass oil and stuff. But yeah, old timers used to chew it too. They just chew on it. I've not decided I want to do that yet. Yeah. Anyway, awesome. All right. Well,
All right,
thank
Brian.
you very much, folks. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. That's great.
Thanks, Joe.
Really appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. So a couple of announcements. We're going to do the drawings, and we have for the door prize. We got 4 really great things. We got a new smoker. We have smoker fuel. We have a Veromite little checker bottle, and we have a Man Lake coffee cup. Like a mug, like a Yeti kind of thing. So that's good. And I'll do that in a second. But announcements, real quick. Our next meeting is November 16th, which is a Thursday, at the Jung Center, JUNG, down by the museum district. And again, you can park right by the building, or you can park in the lot kind of across the street, or you can street park. So it's pretty easy to park there. And then coming up that's November 16th, November 3rd and 4th, I think. Yep, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Maybe it starts early. But anyways, Texas Beekeepers Association annual convention, that's in Temple. And along with that, they're doing a honey tasting. So you can, or honey taste contest or whatever. They're also doing, I think you can enter like mead in there. It's in that link that's in your skep, but it was like you could do mead, honey. They do a competition on who brings the best little bar of wax or something like that. If you got it really good and clean, the 3rd and 4th of November. It's in our skep. So if you check that email, it's right there. Way more information than, I didn't print the entire skep. I just printed the parts I thought I couldn't remember or that I really needed to remember. Okay, and then of course our November 16th meeting is elections for president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and we're doing a potluck. So everybody be thinking about what you want to bring for side dish or dessert or something, appetizer or whatever. Yes, sir.
Joe, and I also, just to add to your list of things to do, this Saturday up at Magnolia Bee and Supply, I'll be doing
Oh, really?
the
Okay.
cost is $10. Bring your own honey. There'll be some honey there as an introduction to being once you.
Awesome. Good. And if you make your mead, you can bring it to the November party at
Yeah.
the Jung Center because that's allowed there.
Wife won second place with her mead that she made at my class last year.
Ah, all right. There you go.
So,
All right. Let's do the door prize drawing. I have my trusty random number generator here. Number 7, Jim Burrow. So pick one of those 4 things back there. Okay, calculate. No, do it again. Number 10, Chris. Sure, you won. Get what you want. You always want another coffee cup for the farm, I think. Just saying. Okay, number 5, Ray Hill. See, it pays to show up at the meeting. Okay, that's 3 people, right? One more. Number 11, it's a visitor. That is David Hershey. David. So whatever they don't take.
I'm not sure what's the difference.
Well, you pay dues, then you're a member, then you're a visitor.
I just signed up for the Facebook.
Yeah. So you're a visitor. Yeah. So yeah, our dues for individual are $25 a year, and then that gets you the right to come to all the meetings and go on Zoom, live Zoom meetings, and then also to rent our extraction equipment, but the rent is free. So if you need to extract your honey and stuff like that, you can get that equipment for free. So, okay, yes. Oh, Kelly did.
Yeah. Remember on that.
Oh, we want to do that one too? Okay, you betcha. All right. The loofah winner is number 6. Christy Cole. Christy. There you go. See? I'm good. I'm good on that one. Okay. Okay, so that concludes our meeting. And if you will, please take chairs, fold them up, put them in this rack or that rack, and then we'll pick everything up and we'll be all good. Thank you all for coming. And I'll see you in November. It ought to be fun. It always is. And you're invited too, Brian.
I tend to show up to some things.
If there's beer.
Well, yeah.